I want to tell you a story about compassion, about love. I want to tell you a story about pain, about abuse. I want to tell you a story about the future, about being known. I want to tell you a story about the purple bunny from the amazing digital circus. God damn! Tell me the truth, tell me the truth. Do I look bonita? Do I look cute? The Amazing Digital Circus is an independent animated TV show created and written by Gooseworks and produced by Glitch Productions, in which 6 or 7 people go on wacky adventures in an existential hellscape. It's free, and you should watch it. No, seriously. Go watch it. I will by no means discuss all there is to say about this show, but I will assume knowledge of the source material, and much of what I do say, especially concerning the character of Jax, will recontextualize the show in a way that changes the viewing experience. Consider this your spoiler warning. Watch the show. Finally, The Amazing Digital Circus is a story that contains multiple trans characters. As such, this video will contain discussions about gender identity. I myself identify as a cis person, so while I will do my best to discuss portrayals here, I cannot make comment on how well these portrayals reflect lived experience. I leave those conversations to other trans people's voices. Further, this video will contain discussions about abuse and suicide, so please consider this your warning about those. In order to properly discuss Jax, we must first understand a number of other characters within the circus and how the show uses them to build its view of compassion. Without any further ado, let's begin that discussion with... While initially posed as a wacky comedic relief character, Kinger serves more consistently as the emotional heart of this show, and the clearest, most consistent representative of care and love the series ever has. In episode 3, he directly states what I think forms a fundamental thesis of the show as a whole.
In this world, the worst thing you can do is make someone think they're not wanted or loved.
We will be coming back to these words a lot, and Kinger embodies them quite well. The scene in question is one where he's making sure to tell Pomni how brave he finds her, that he believes in her and loves her. Kinger is a person who has experienced intense isolation, who by the time Ragatha arrives at the circus has been alone for an unknowable length of time. The world has taken its toll on him, and he isn't as lucid as he used to be. He can't remember much, and most people view him as crazy. And yet, in the finale, when faced with similarly dire circumstances, with no memory or outside influence, Kinger echoes the words he told Pomni back in episode 3.
You're very strong, Pomni. And I know you'll be able to get through this.
Kinger will choose to show love to those around him every time, to make sure Pomni hears that he knows her and that he loves her. His opinion of her has not changed, and he will always take the opportunity to let her know that. Carry this thesis with you. It will be very important later. However, he's not the only character with a driving thesis behind the narrative. That secondary honor goes to... Zubal's first real introduction as a character comes via their relationship with their body. Zubal is a non-binary character, and while everyone in the circus more or less dislikes their body, Zubal's discomfort is given the most form through their removable and replaceable parts, forced to continually disassemble and reassemble how they look on a daily basis, feeling like they never quite like the result. It's gender dysphoria. Zubal is tortured by the idea of their reflection, of body parts that stack up and smother them, losing themselves in the seas of how they look and how uncomfortable it makes them. A worse creator may have left the character here, a representation of dysphoria for Zubal to overcome at some point. But instead, in episode 6, Gangle asks Zubal a critical question.
How are you supposed to like the part of yourself that just makes you worse than everyone else?
Zubal's dysphoria is never presented as something they will completely work through within the narrative. They never fix or get over their dysphoria. One may argue, as Gangle does, that this continued discomfort makes their life distinctly worse than someone that doesn't have it. Zubal's response here is the moment I want to focus on.
'Cause it exists. It's a part of you that's real. And the only you that you should care about is the real you. You have to choose to love yourself, even if it doesn't make sense. It's not natural, it's intentional.
Zubul is characterized by making the active choice to love themselves, not in spite of their dysphoria, but in conjunction with it. The dysphoria they feel about their body is as much a part of them as that body itself. Zubul never finds the perfect assortment of parts that makes them feel whole, but they make the choice to love themselves anyway. They find peace with the ability to change and discuss their problems with the people they trust. It's not natural, it's intentional. 2 core themes. The worst thing you can do is make someone feel they're not wanted or loved, and you have to choose to love yourself, even if it doesn't make sense. But let's look at the other half of that scene. Gangle would want me to wear the cat ears for her section. It's canon. Gangle is a depressed character. Her central gimmick is centered around feeling like she has a thin veneer of happiness that she wants to present to the world. But it's fragile and easily damaged, revealing the sadness that lies beneath. One may note that her tragedy mask is not similarly fragile. It's with her at all times, just under the surface. Attempts to mask her depression for prolonged periods of time, to put on a more durable face for others, leave her feeling drained and needing to be free of it. She can't pretend to be someone she's not, but she also feels like she's worse than others for her true self being a depressed self. And the show heavily implies that these feelings of exhaustion and depression led her to attempt suicide in the past. How is she meant to love herself in these conditions? Gangle's relationship with her masks changes slowly over the course of this show, with her crying more in her comedy mask and smiling more in her tragedy mask. She begins to trust her happiness to others, knowing they'll be there for her when she needs them. She still carries that depression with her, but she's also able to lean on those near her more and more, and becomes less isolated by her depression over time. Gangle and Zubul connect to each other through the parts of themselves that can't change, and are able to support each other through them. Though, that statement comes with one big caveat that will become clearer after discussing Gangle's relationship with Jax. Gangle is Jax's primary target of abuse. She is systematically made to feel lesser as a person for showing emotion and caring about her art. She gets placed under Jax's thumb and emotionally manipulated for amusement. Her entire time at the circus, she has not been free from this abuse, with her name being a cruel reflection of how Jax viewed her as a fundamentally broken mess. She was systematically made to feel both unknown and unloved. Her fear of Jax is a central through line to her character, and the abusive relationship that she has with him can feel painfully real. Ostensibly, they're friends, but she's never treated remotely as a peer. She is always lesser. She is always below. Thus, back in episode 6, her response to Zubul is,
Have you ever had to make that choice?
Huh?
Sorry, I mean, of course not. You're Zubul.
she finds it so easy to place a person on a pedestal, to believe that they are better than she is. After Jax abstracts, Gangle sits and wonders why she can't cry. The mileage on this scene might vary for people, but I found it quite moving. Her freedom from abuse has come at perhaps the cost of Jax's life, and the amount that Gangle saw Jax as a friend, despite their abusive relationship, is unknown. However, it is notable that later she does cry in her room, and Zubul and Gangle look at these complicated feelings and sit with them together. Love and hate and grief and relief are not mutually exclusive emotions, and it's possible to still feel sad about losing someone that hurt you. Gangle is a touching look into how a relationship like that feels, and how much better a person's life can be when they develop meaningful relationships away from that abuse. It never quite leaves her. She still shows signs about how it affects her thinking, but she's growing. Her story is well echoed then by Ragatha is an excessively optimistic character, to the detriment of her relationship with others. Her inability to acknowledge the horror of their present situation and the trauma that she's enduring makes her feel quite like her body looks, the world's punching bag that will smile no matter how you treat her. The implication within the show is that she developed these coping mechanisms as a result of her upbringing from her mother, who's implied to have abused her in the past, leading to Ragatha worrying about how everyone sees her and seeking the validation of people she doesn't even like. Her role as a punching bag is then further validated by Jax, who will physically abuse her at every opportunity, harboring a hate for her that for most of the show the audience is not at liberty to understand. However, you can read Ragatha another way. When she initially arrives at the circus, she's able to communicate how terrifying she finds it. Further, in the finale, whenever she appears in flashbacks prior to Ribbit or Kaufma's abstractions, she seems to be doing more or less fine. Her situation within the circus is still hellishly tragic, but she has strong relationships with others, friendships she can lean on. She isn't as overbearingly optimistic. It's only when Jax starts to lash out at others, when she is thrust back into a physically abusive relationship, do those coping mechanisms reappear. Over the course of episodes 5 and 6, we watch Jax befriend Pomni, often making a point to Ragatha how she is more alone as a result. Ragatha is deliberately isolated from someone she tried hard to befriend, crushing her under the weight of that failure. Ragatha has watched 2 of her friends die prior to the start of the show. She takes that thesis of in this world, the worst thing you can do is make someone feel they're not wanted or loved, and makes it her personal responsibility. She has to make sure everyone knows they're unconditionally supported and loved, that she is here for them, in fear of losing them too. In episode 6, we see the epitome of this mindset when she says,
I think I might have failed Pomni. Just like I failed Jax.
To Ragatha, the fact that she is physically abused by Jax is her fault, and that if only she were a better, more optimistic, kinder, a more perfect person, she would be treated better. She had trauma prior to the circus, to be sure, but the real tragedy is that the world of the circus reopens those wounds, thrusts her back into a physically abusive relationship, and she is left scrambling to be the perfect person for everyone in a world that is falling apart around her. Her relationship with Pomni, by the end of the show, only gains its meaning through how she is beginning to distance herself from that trauma response, able to finally see herself outside of the self-destructive mindset she was forcing herself to endure. She recognizes the shittiness of their situation, and she's honest about it. She's far from the most progressed character in the show, and I think the final episode was mostly attempting to show the opposite. She was better before we met her. There was a time in which she was doing okay. Perhaps even after this abuse, she can find a way to be okay again. All right, I think we can talk about Jax now. I'm going to be honest. This video was created to talk about Jax. I like many other characters in this show, and Gangle is my favorite, but I wanted to talk about Jax the most. I felt it important to talk about everyone else first, because Jax is an absolute asshole that has hurt many people in the circus. And it's important to note how the show doesn't shy away from that pain. Gangle and Ragatha carry it with them through the finale. Jax has systematically worked to make people feel unwanted, unknown, and unloved. Jax is an asshole. And Jax is a trans woman. I will be using they/them pronouns for Jax for now, a decision which Jax would hate, but I hope will become clear why later. I've seen some people attempt to read the scene with Ribbit and Jax in such a way that Jax isn't transgender, and frankly, I will not be giving those readings the time of day here. To me, the scene between Jax and Ribbit in her room is explicit. Jax's character is a trans character. But I want to go beyond that. We've been operating under the thesis, in this world, the worst thing you can do is make someone feel they're not wanted or loved. and that can obviously be interpreted as having compassion and love for those around you, the ache of isolation when someone is made to feel like no one cares about them. But there's another angle to that statement that I find more tragic. The worst thing you can do is make someone feel they're not wanted or loved, and you can do it to yourself. Once you understand Jax as a character trying to hide how they feel like a woman, the entire history of the show becomes recontextualized. Jax refuses to tell true stories about their past, hides details about who they are, repeatedly looks in the mirror to comment that they look stupid, is terrified of someone stripping off their skin to see the person they truly are underneath. Jax has systematically made other people feel unwanted and unloved, and that includes themselves. They've kept themselves from being known, hidden their identity from others as they enter a deep pit of self-isolation. Something important to note about Jax's story is that they did not have a dearth of love in the circus. Pomni repeatedly tries to reach out to them. Ragatha used to be their friend, and both show genuine concern as their spiral worsens. People want to love them, but you can't make someone open up to you. You can't force someone to let you know them. Ultimately, being known is both an act of giving as much as it is one of receiving. Throughout the show, many characters hug. This may sound like a digression, but trust me. The imagery of a hug in The Amazing Digital Circus is very connected to how the series views love. A hug requires two people. It is an act of giving, but it is also an act of receiving. It is notable then that when Jax is hugged in the show, they never hug back. They always push the other person away. Thematically, then, Jax's inability to hug someone back is a reflection of their inability to allow someone to truly know them, to risk the part of themselves that is the most vulnerable. Episode 9 recontextualizes this response through Jax's mother, who constantly compared them to their father and similarly berated Jax when they tried to come out as trans. When she abruptly hugs Jax following this tirade, a bastardized symbol of love, Jax pushes her away, no longer willing to give or receive her love. A decision they later fear killed her. Within this framework, Jax's inability to be vulnerable is a fear response. They've been burned by that risk before. To avoid being known, though, Jax must keep pushing people away. And in doing so, they cause Ribbit's abstraction. And Jax is left staring at the hand that did it. This is what makes the moment where Jax finally breaks down and hugs Pomni back, where they both sob together, so meaningful. This is the first moment where Jax has allowed herself to be known, taken that risk, and is finally able to turn around and accept the love that was always there waiting for her, to finally allow herself to be known. And in this moment, we flash through the rest of the show, seeing Jax in this new light as Isn't She Lovely by Stevie Wonder plays. If this moment didn't hit for you, I don't know if I can truly articulate why it's so meaningful to me. But I remember sitting in the theater and looking at this version of Jax, and all I could think was that she was beautiful. That's not entirely true. I was also thinking about how all the transfeb Jax truthers on Tumblr were going to lose their fucking minds, but like mostly the beautiful thing. Watching Jax finally have this moment of acceptance after being so scared, of someone understanding who she is for the first time and receiving love for it, hugging and crying from the relief of finally being known. It's just beautiful. And it was too late. In this world, the worst thing you can do is make someone think they're not wanted or loved, and you can do it to yourself. You can isolate yourself, block off the corners of your heart that you don't want to approach, but that forces you to push everyone away, to hurt them, to turn into someone so scared of being known that other people being open with their emotions is seen as something to be destroyed, to make them feel as unlovable as you feel. I've seen some critique of Jax's abstraction, calling it sudden and unexpected, and I want to push back against those criticisms here. Abstraction in this show is always presented as unexpected, the depths of isolation. Even characters we know are going to abstract, like Queenie, are still presented in such a way that their abstraction is jarring for the audience. The closest we get to witnessing abstraction is in episode 7 with Jax. But they aren't truly alone yet. Pomni and Ragatha still come to check up on them. Fundamentally, we can't see Jax abstract, because by seeing it, we would be there. And Jax was utterly, completely alone. No one was there. But I don't see Jax's story as a tragic story. For Jax herself, I do, but ultimately I don't think that's the show's goal. If you try to read the show as saying, this person was an asshole because they were trans and then they killed themselves, I think you're missing something. I think you're missing Leeroy. To me, the conclusion of this story exists a little bit in Leeroy, because he isn't out yet. There are some signs that he's doing okay, like he and his friends frequent a queer hangout spot in the bar Triangle, but he isn't out. But also his story isn't over yet. He still has his whole life ahead of him. And to me, Leeroy feels like Gooseworks sitting down with all of the people in her audience that aren't out yet and saying, your story is still ongoing. You get to choose how you treat yourself. And if you're going to love even the parts of yourself that you worry make you worse than everyone else. Because it's real. And the only you should care about is the real you. It's not natural. It's intentional. And yes, she cautions that if you try to bury that part of you deep inside yourself, it can eat you from the inside out, turn you into a person that hurts other people and is alone because of it. But Jax has made her choices. Now you get to make yours. And if you look deep inside yourself at the person waiting there, you may just find that she's beautiful. God, isn't she lovely? In this world, the worst thing you can do is make someone feel they're not wanted or loved. And you can do it to yourself. But there's still time. Isn't she lovely? Isn't she wonderful? Isn't she precious? Less than 1 minute. Oh, I never thought true love would be making one as lovely